Hey everyone, it is Dani'i and welcome to this evening update. I hope you've been having a really wonderful day thus far. So we will be getting straight into what is happening across the Caribbean and surrounding areas. I will also be zooming into the coast of Northwest Africa where there is a lot of activity where that wave is to emerge from that could potentially develop into something. And we'll also be talking about Calvin, which is a tropical storm and a tropical storm watch has now been issued. And so before I go into details, please do subscribe if you haven't yet done so and tap the bell so that you never miss an important update. Alright, so we are first starting out with the Pacific, and so there we have Calvin over there. Now we're looking at the infrared satellite, and it doesn't look that impressive on this satellite imagery here, but as we change to the visible imagery, there we can see all that cloud cover, all that activity in association with Calvin, and it is weakening. It will continue to weaken as time goes by. However, as we're going to be heading into tomorrow and also for Wednesday local time in Hawaii, it is likely that there is going to be some tropical storm impacts, and so specifically for the big island of Hawaii or Hawaii County. So that is where it's under a tropical storm watch right now. So tropical storm conditions possible within the next 36 to 48 hours, and this is for local time in Hawaii. So the system currently has maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour and is moving westward at 18 miles per hour. So as we're going to be heading into the middle of this week, it will continue to weaken and eventually disintegrate out there in the open waters of the central or maybe the western Pacific. And so now let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on over in the Atlantic. We are returning to this satellite imagery. We see lots of activity just in the vicinity of Florida and of the southeastern coast of the US, even extended into Great Abaco and Grand Bahama as well. And there we have Dawn up there, by the way. And let's briefly talk about Dawn. So Dawn has now transitioned into a tropical depression. So it's now a tropical cyclone, no longer subtropical. And as of right now, this is the latest track for it. And it is making its way toward the east-southeast at 14 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour. Now it is going to continue with that sort of southward track over the next couple of days, and that will allow it to possibly re-strengthen, not into anything significant out there, but likely regain or gain tropical storm status as it is going to be loitering out there. And so now we want to go to the coast of Africa. Here we can see that there is a lot of activity, and our next tropical wave should be emerging very, very soon. And we could see that wave develop into something. It's what I've been talking about in my more recent update videos that models have been sniffing at for some time now. And here we're seeing somewhat of a likelihood that we could certainly have some development. So I will be taking you guys through the latest conditions out there as well as the model runs for both GFS and Euro. And so firstly though, we want to look at what is happening for the Caribbean and surrounding areas. So we're taking a look at the northern South America and parts of the Caribbean, and here we can see lots of activity across some spots in Colombia, going to Venezuela, northern Guyana, even over in parts of Suriname and French Guiana as well. Even just over the vicinity of western Trinidad, there is some thunderstorm activity. So let me know what's happening for you. The ABC Islands in the clear right now, just some high level clouds passing through. We can even see a portion of the southwestern Caribbean where there is a lot going on. So let's drift closer, further up rather, into the region. Here we can see this big blob over here. Lots of showers and thunderstorms in the vicinity of parts of eastern Honduras, going into Nicaragua, and also for some spots in Costa Rica and Panama. Now what is causing this? A tropical wave is in the area, so that is helping to enhance all this activity that we're seeing. Likely lots of heavy rain, even with some flooding in some areas. And so I hope that everyone is okay right now and taking all necessary precautions. We see some more isolated activity heading to the Yucatan Peninsula, heading over to the Cayman Islands. Much isn't happening across some areas in Jamaica. There is some thunderstorm activity and showers this evening. Heading to Cuba right now, some activities developing for some spots, nothing too crazy. Similar story for Haiti, and over in the Dominican Republic we see a bit more activity, and also for Puerto Rico as well. Now as we head to the Virgin Islands, things are a little bit less intense there, and then a similar story for the northern Leeward Islands. But as we head further south into the rest of the Lesser Antilles, including Barbados, there isn't a whole lot going on this evening. We also see a little bit of activity lingering just around the Turks and Caicos Islands. Not a whole lot happening for the Bahamas. So that is what is going on this afternoon, guys. Again, let me know what conditions are like for you. And now we want to talk about that potential cyclone that could happen as we're going to be heading into the latter part of July. So we're talking about something potentially as we're going to be heading into next week and the following week, even as we're going to be starting August. And so firstly, I want to take you guys to what is happening right now in terms of the favorability, but specifically for the Saharan area as well as the ocean temperatures. And so for the Saharan area, we can see all these colors, oranges, reds, indicating that dense layer of dry air that is quite extensive right now across the Atlantic. And there we see that activity off Africa to the south of it. And this is going to be a problem for developing cyclones. It is usually a problem because all this dry, stable weather, it doesn't allow for that thunderstorm activity to develop. And when there is a lot of dry air around, weaker systems or no systems at all. So there is no guarantee of something. Some of this is already reaching the Lesser Antilles as well, this next big plume here. And there is some lingering dry air across some spots in the Caribbean as well. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the ocean temperature anomaly map. So first we're looking at this map here and we see these oranges and reds, and those are areas of above average temperatures. Things are way warmer than normal, up to around 3 or 5 degrees Celsius in some spots. So we're talking about record warming this month across some areas. Things are a little bit cooler in some spots in the Caribbean, but still very warm, just cooler than average, but average is quite warm. So let's go on to the actual map here, and we can see that within this area, going to the Western Atlantic, very, very warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico off the southeastern coast, and also across the Northern Caribbean. We're seeing lots of these 30, 31, 32 Celsius isotherms as well. So very warm. So if we're going to be having something moving into this area, provided the wind shear is also conducive and there's lots of moisture, we could be seeing some crazy intensification. That is what GFS showed. If you watch my update video this morning, that is what GFS showed. A system making its way into the vicinity of the Bahamas and rapidly intensifying, becoming a major hurricane. And I honestly doubt that at this point in time, because there is no guarantee of something even developing. However, let's go ahead and take a look at the latest run for the model, after which we're going to be looking at what Euro has to show. So go into what GFS has. In order for you to understand this map, these black lines, they're called isobars. So it might be a bit confusing, but those black squiggly lines, they're called isobars, and they join areas of equal pressure. Now we're looking for them being in a circular manner, and when we see a lot more circular lines and the number that you're seeing, that value getting less and less, that is indicating a low pressure system that is intensifying. So when those isobars are very closely packed, that indicates a very steep gradient. So let's see what GFS has to show. There we have the forecast time right there, and as we're going to be heading throughout this week, heading to the middle to the latter part of this week, GFS not showing too much happening with the system, that wave that is going to be emerging, but there we have that low pressure area developing and continuing westward. So likely we're not going to be seeing much as it makes its way across the main development region, which is that area between the Lesser Antilles and the coast of Africa. So it's likely that all that dry air and dust is going to be helping to prevent any significant intensification of that tropical wave. However, as we're going to be heading into next week, as it makes its way closer to the Caribbean, we start to see some intensification of the system. And so eventually, though, we see that GFS is no longer expecting that it will be moving into the Caribbean, and even showing another system developing up there. Very interesting here. But as for that main one that we're taking a look at, it starts to continue to the west, north of Puerto Rico, heading straight into the Bahamas, going into Florida, and then other states of the southeastern U.S. as a strong system, potentially a hurricane. So that is what the latest GFS forecast is calling for. And as I mentioned, there are going to be lots of changes. We're talking about something that is pretty far out from now. So there are bound to be changes. And usually as we head to even 5 days out from now, accuracy tends to decrease a lot. So So Floridians, Bahamians, belongers, I'm not saying that you should be worried, but we are in the hurricane season and we will see a lot more activity. So now is the time to prepare, to ensure that you have your plans in place and take the necessary steps in order to protect yourself and your loved ones and even your pets as best as possible. So this is not the time to be fearful or take this with certainty to say, okay, a hurricane is heading here, because in reality we just don't know. But what I am doing is keeping you guys updated on a daily basis. And now, what about the euro? Is euro expecting that we're gonna be seeing something? As we look at what the euro model has to show here, there we have the time, and we're heading into throughout this week here, and we're seeing all that activity, all that moisture off Africa, and that wave eventually making its way toward the west. However, we're not seeing a whole lot happening with it as it continues, likely as a result of all that dry air and dust that I showed you guys earlier. But as we're going to be heading into the early part of next week, here we have this activity moving in and eventually crossing into the greater Antilles. So euro is not expecting that we're going to be seeing development, and it could be the case where the model will eventually hop onto it if it seems more and more likely. But as of now, euro is not expecting much up until next Wednesday. And so regardless though, if it even makes its way into the Caribbean as a strong tropical wave, it could bring tropical storm-like conditions at the most for some areas. And so as I said, guys, I will be keeping you posted as time goes by, and nothing is solid right now. As a matter of fact, nothing new has been marked for potential development on the National Hurricane Center's 7-day outlook map, but I will keep you guys posted. And so this video has been pretty lengthy, but I hope that you found it to be quite informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I will respond as best and as soon as I can. And as always, remember to be weatherwise.